The city above the clouds. You open your eyes to a mist that rolls like silk between jagged green peaks. The air is thin, cool, and ancient. As dawnlight breaks across the Andes, a hidden city slowly reveals itself. Terraces sculpted into cliffs, stairways that ascend toward clouds, and walls, made of immense flawless stones fitted so perfectly together that even a blade of grass cannot slip between them. You are standing at Machu Picchu, the lost sanctuary of the Incas, a place that seems less built than breathed into existence by the mountains themselves. This place, perched at 2,430 meters above sea level, was unknown to the outside world for centuries. Even the invading Spaniards who conquered most of the Inca Empire in the 16th century never found it. It remained hidden in the dense jungles of Peru until 1911, when an American historian named Hiram Bingham, guided by local farmers, stumbled upon the ruins while searching for the fabled last city of the Incas, Vilcabamba. What he found instead was something even more extraordinary, a city untouched by time, untouched by conquest, and shrouded in an aura of reverent mystery. As Bingham stepped into the clearing, he saw stone stairways climbing into mist terraces, spilling down steep slopes, and temples perched on impossible edges of rock. The city seemed almost deliberately concealed, as though it had been waiting silent and patient for someone to rediscover it. But the deeper question arose immediately. Why was it built here at all? The Inca Empire stretched across the Andes, covering vast regions of what are now Peru, Ecuador, Bolivia, and Chile. They built fortresses, roads, and temples, but none like this one. Why would anyone construct a city in such an inaccessible location, surrounded by mountains, cliffs, and deep ravines carved by the Urubamba River? What purpose did this city serve? Was it a fortress, a royal estate, or a sacred sanctuary, closer to the gods? From the very beginning, the mystery of Machu Picchu defied simple explanation. The layout of the city reveals a delicate intelligence that seems far beyond its time. The Temple of the Sun is aligned perfectly with the rising and setting of the sun during solstices. The Intihuatana stone, a carved pillar, marks precise celestial events and might have served as a solar clock or astronomical instrument. The terraces engineered for agriculture not only prevent erosion, but create microclimates that could nurture diverse crops. How did the Incas achieve such architectural and environmental mastery without iron tools, wheels, or written language? Every stone seems purposefully shaped, each wall angled to absorb shocks from earthquakes technology that modern engineers still study with awe. Then there are the stones themselves, massive blocks, some weighing over 50 tons, hauled up treacherous slopes. The nearest quarry lies nearly 30 kilometers away, across mountainous terrain that even modern machinery would struggle to cross. How could people of the 15th century, using only ropes manpower and simple tools, accomplish such a feat? And why here on a narrow ridge between towering peaks exposed to mist and rain, far from any large population center? Scholars, historians, and engineers have offered numerous theories over the past century. Some propose that Machu Picchu was built as a royal retreat for Emperor Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui, who ruled in the mid-1400s and expanded the Inca Empire to its greatest height. The city's isolation, panoramic views, and spiritual atmosphere might have made it an ideal refuge for the ruler and his priests. Others suggest it was a religious sanctuary dedicated to the worship of Inti, the sun god. The positioning of its temples and observatories certainly supports this view. In the high Andean worldview, mountains Apus were sacred beings, protectors of life, and gateways to the divine. Machu Picchu's location, surrounded by towering peaks like Huayna Picchu and Putucusi, may have been chosen for its alignment with these powerful spirits. A few scholars have proposed it served as an astronomical observatory, its structures designed to map the movement of stars and sun. Its geometry seems to echo the constellations. Some even claim the layout mirrors the Southern Cross and the Milky Way, as seen from above the Andes. But others look beyond the Incas entirely. Could it be that the Incas merely inherited Machu Picchu, an older site built by an earlier forgotten civilization? The mystery deepens when one considers the similarities between the masonry at Machu Picchu and ancient structures found in Egypt, Easter Island, and Sacsayhuaman. Smooth interlocking stones without mortar stand the test of earthquakes and centuries. Could there have been a shared lost knowledge of architecture passed down from an age we no longer remember? More than a century after its rediscovery, Machu Picchu remains unsolved. Archaeologists have excavated tombs, temples, and agricultural terraces, yet no written record or artifact definitively explains its purpose. The Spanish never mentioned it in their chronicles. No Inca writings exist to describe it, for the Incas had no written language, only quipu-knotted cords used to record numbers. So we are left with breathtaking precision and perfect silence. The stones speak, but in a language no one can yet understand. As twilight fades across the ruins, the mountains take on a face-like shape. When viewed from above, many claim that Machu Picchu itself forms the image of a sleeping guardian, a human visage gazing toward the heavens. Some see coincidence, others see intention. Could Machu Picchu be more than an Incan masterpiece, perhaps a remnant of a far older unknown civilization? Was it part of a network of sacred sites, connected by knowledge, now lost knowledge of astronomy, energy, or geometry that we have only begun to rediscover? The mist swirls again, and the city seems to breathe with it, half real, half dream. The question remain unanswered, waiting quietly in the stone corridors that have watched the centuries pass, like clouds drifting through the Andes. For now, all you can do is listen, as the city above the clouds whispers its ancient secret, a sanctuary hidden from the world. The path winds upward, narrow and ancient, where moss carpets the stone, and the air smells faintly of rain and cedar. You can almost feel the footsteps of those who once climbed this sacred road centuries ago, carrying offerings and prayers toward the mountain peaks. High above, lost in mist, lies the city of Machu Picchu, its presence unknown to the world for nearly 400 years. When the Spanish conquistadors swept across the Andes in the 16th century, they razed temples, burned libraries, and erased empires. Yet they never found this one. Machu Picchu, built at the height of the Inca Empire, escaped conquest entirely untouched and unscribed in any of the chronicles that recorded the empire's fall. How could an entire city vanish from history while standing in plain sight, its terraces basking in sunlight and its stones still humming with the echoes of life, hidden between sharp ridges and cloaked by tropical forests? Machu Picchu seems deliberately concealed, as though the mountain itself wished to guard its secret. The mist thickens, wrapping the citadel in a pale veil. The longer you gaze, the more it feels like you're looking at something that was meant to stay hidden. Why build a city here among clouds and silence, where cliffs plunge into the roaring Urubamba River thousands of feet below? Why not in the fertile valleys below, where water and life are plentiful? The questions linger like the mist, soft, cold, and persistent. Some believe this isolation was not a mistake, but a design. That Machu Picchu was a sanctuary reserved for the holiest of rites, a celestial retreat for priests, astronomers, and chosen nobles who communed with the gods of the mountains and the sun. From its terraces, the views extend endlessly across the sacred valley, where peaks rise like sentinels, and shadows move with the rhythm of the sun. Here, far from the noise of empire, perhaps the Incas sought communion with something greater than themselves. Yet the silence holds more than spirituality. It conceals something strange. No clear record of its original name exists. Machu Picchu, meaning Old Mountain in Quechua, was a modern label given centuries later by those who rediscovered it. Whatever the Incas called this place, its true name, its divine purpose was lost with the people who once walked its paths. The terraces that stepped down the mountain were no mere farmlands. Each level was engineered with layers of stone, sand, and soil to regulate moisture, prevent landslides, and feed crops suited to different altitudes. The Incas did not simply build on the mountain, they became part of it, shaping it into a living temple of earth and stone. But that perfection raises more questions than it answers. How did the Incas carry stones weighing dozens of tons to such dizzying heights? How did they carve them with such smooth precision, using tools softer than the rock itself? The nearest quarry lies 30 kilometers away, across ravines and cliffs so narrow that even modern equipment would struggle to pass. If it was all done by hand, by sheer will and ingenuity, the feat borders on impossible. You imagine the procession of laborers, their torches flickering at dusk, hauling blocks up ancient trails. The sound of stone striking stone echoes across the mountains. Yet the idea feels incomplete, like part of a story has gone missing. Could there have been another method, another knowledge, one that has vanished from human memory? The thought invites unease. Civilizations rise and fall, but knowledge once lost can leave behind only whispers. Across the world, in Egypt and Mesopotamia, similar mysteries lie buried in stone structures that align with star stones, carved with techniques we still cannot replicate. Is it coincidence or a shared wisdom that spanned oceans long before recorded history began? Even more perplexing is how the site remained hidden for centuries. Entire villages disappeared, the jungle reclaimed roads and terraces, and Machu Picchu vanished into myth. The locals knew of its existence, they called it the Old Citadel, but the outside world forgot. When Hiram Bingham arrived in 1911, guided by farmers from nearby Cusco, he could scarcely believe what he saw: a sprawling city of hundreds of buildings, temples, fountains, and terraces, almost untouched by time. But why was it abandoned in the first place? The stones give no answers, no signs of battle, no charred remains, no records of disease. It was as if its inhabitants had simply walked away one day, sealing their world behind them. You gaze out across the terraces where the clouds drift low and soft like waves of sleep. It is quiet, save for the distant call of a mountain bird. The city feels alive, breathing slowly, patient as the stone. And for a fleeting moment, you sense what the first explorers must have felt: the awe of finding something so complete, so precise, so deliberately hidden, that it feels like a message from another time. Perhaps Machu Picchu was never meant to be discovered by conquerors or chroniclers. Perhaps it was meant to remain here wrapped in mist, a sanctuary preserved by its own silence, a reminder that not all knowledge wishes to be known, and not all cities wish to be found. And as night falls over, the Andes shadows stretch along the terraces like memories. Somewhere in the distance, the mountains whisper a truth that humanity still hasn't learned to hear. The stones that defy time. The mist thins as the sun climbs higher, spilling gold across the gray shoulders of the mountains. From here, where the terraces cascade like green ribbons down the slopes, you can see the walls of Machu Picchu glowing faintly in the light. The stones seem alive, breathing, shifting, glimmering, each one carved with a perfection that appears almost impossible for its age. The walls stand without mortar, yet they fit so tightly together that not even the thinnest blade can slide between the stones. Edges curve into one another, locking with a precision that modern stonemasons still find bewildering. The shapes are irregular, no two alike, yet each fits the next, as though melted together. The corners taper slightly inward, a subtle design that allows the entire structure to absorb the tremors of earthquakes. Even after centuries of rain, sun, and storms, these walls remain intact, their seams seamless. How did the Incas do this? You reach out and place your hand upon one of the great blocks. Its surface is cool and smooth, but faintly textured like skin. The granite feels dense, heavier than it should be. Nearby, one of the largest stones weighs more than 50 tons, yet it rests perfectly balanced among smaller ones without shifting or sinking. The nearest quarry is thought to be 30 kilometers away, separated by ravines, rivers, and steep cliffs. The roads to reach Machu Picchu twist sharply upward, too narrow for large loads even by modern standards. The Incas had no wheels, no iron tools, and no beasts of burden capable of carrying such weight. And yet somehow they built a city of nearly 200 buildings from this impossible material. Some archaeologists suggest that they used ropes and levers, dragging the stones up slopes on log rollers, or carving out temporary ramps from the mountain's face. Others imagine a relay of thousands of workers coordinated in near-perfect harmony. But when you stand among these walls, the theories begin to sound fragile, like an attempt to explain music through numbers. The precision here feels intentional beyond necessity. The Incas could have used smaller stones easier to move and shape. They could have filled their walls with mortar or rubble, as they did in other sites. But at Machu Picchu, they did not. Every wall, every doorway, every stair was shaped with reverence, as though the stones themselves carried divine importance. And the mystery deepens with the nature of the stone itself. The granite of Machu Picchu registers at about 6 on the Mohs hardness scale, harder than iron or bronze, the only metals available to the Incas, which measure at 3 or 4. To cut or polish such stone using softer tools defies simple logic. No iron chisels have been found. No tool marks reveal their technique. The surfaces are too clean, too deliberate, as if they were shaped by something more refined than hammer and chisel. This has given rise to countless hypotheses. Some believe the Incas developed a way to soften stone chemically, perhaps using acidic plant extracts or secret minerals that could temporarily loosen the structure of the rock. Others claim they used sound low vibrations or rhythmic pounding to fracture and shape the stones with minimal effort. A few fringe researchers even speak of lost technologies, knowledge inherited from civilizations that predated the Incas by millennia, now erased from history. Yet none of these theories are proven. No ancient formula, no device, no residue of chemical compounds has ever been discovered. The stones remain mute, holding their secret tightly. The craftsmanship extends beyond beauty. The city sits on the meeting point of 2 fault lines in a region known for earthquakes. When tremors shake the ground, the stones shift, minutely absorbing energy and then settling back into perfect alignment. This architectural genius, centuries ahead of modern engineering, has preserved Machu Picchu through countless quakes that have destroyed cities elsewhere. There's also something deliberate about the way the walls breathe with the mountain. Instead of forcing their geometry upon nature, the builders shaped their architecture around it, following ridges, wrapping walls over natural slopes, merging terraces into the very bones of the peak. The city and the mountain seem to exist as one continuous organism. You begin to wonder whether the builders saw stone not as lifeless matter, but as something sacred, something with spirit. In the Incan world, every mountain, every rock, every river was a live part of Pachamama, the Earth Mother. Perhaps these stones were not carved into submission, but persuaded into harmony. Still, the question remains, where did this mastery come from? The Incas rose swiftly as an empire dominating the Andes within just a few generations. Their sudden emergence as master architects and astronomers seems out of proportion with the limited time history gives them. Did they inherit their knowledge from earlier Andean cultures like the Tiwanaku or Wari, or from something even older, unrecorded and forgotten? In the quiet of the morning, it's easy to imagine a deeper lineage, an unbroken thread of builders who once spanned continents, leaving behind monuments that defy explanation. From the pyramids of Egypt to the megaliths of Sacsayhuaman, the same silent signature seems to appear: monumental stones, shaped and set with impossible accuracy. Could Machu Picchu be part of that same lost legacy, a chapter of human civilization written not in ink but in stone? No matter how many measurements, laser scans, or geological surveys are made, the question refuses to fade. The stones endure indifferent to modern curiosity. They hold within them a memory far older than any book, a memory of hands that knew something we no longer understand. As evening settles over the citadel, you watch the light drift across the walls, shadows deepening in the cracks that do not exist. The city glows softly, as though it is remembering itself. Somewhere beyond the reach of science and imagination lies the truth of how these stones came to rest, here perfect and eternal. And in that silence you sense what all explorers feel when they leave Machu Picchu behind, that it is not merely a ruin, but a question carved into the heart of the Andes, one that time itself has yet to answer. Engineering without iron. The dawn mist has lifted, and sunlight now spills across the gray terraces like liquid gold. The air is still and thin, and from this height you can see the full expanse of Machu Picchu stretching along the spine of the mountain, a masterpiece of balance between human craft and natural majesty. But as you gaze upon its intricate terraces, its stairways that flow like rivers of stone, you begin to realize that what makes this city so astonishing is not only what was built, but how it was built. Because here among the high ridges of the Andes lies one of the most enduring puzzles of ancient engineering, the creation of a city of granite, without the use of iron tools, wheels, or beasts of burden. The stones of Machu Picchu are among the hardest on earth. Many are composed of white granite, measuring 6 on the Mohs scale of hardness, while copper and bronze, the only metals available to the Incas, measure only 3 or 4. If one were to strike granite with copper, it would be like trying to carve diamond with wood. Yet the builders of Machu Picchu shaped thousands of these stones with precision so fine that centuries of wind and rain have failed to wear away their seams. No chisels or metal tools capable of such work have ever been found at the site. No drawings, no written records, no instructions were left behind, because the Incas had no written language. Whatever knowledge they used to raise these walls was transmitted through memory practice and ritual. Archaeologists have long debated how the Incas achieved this perfection. Some propose that they hammered stones with harder rocks, pounding for hours or days until the blocks fit together. Others suggest that they rubbed surfaces with sand and water until each face aligned flawlessly with the next. But even these explanations fail to justify the sheer precision of the angles and the complexity of the interlocking joints. The builders shaped the stones not in uniform squares, but in irregular, many-sided forms that fit together like pieces of a puzzle. Each one was customized, adjusted, carved, and recarved until the structure locked as if the mountain itself had arranged it. And then there is the matter of transportation. The quarries from which these stones came lie miles away across deep ravines and narrow mountain passes. The Incas lacked the wheel for transport, lacked draft animals strong enough to pull, and yet somehow stones weighing over 50 tons were moved from one side of the mountain to another, then lifted into place hundreds of feet above the valleys below. Was it sheer manpower, endless lines of laborers hauling with ropes and wooden rollers? Some experts believe that the Incas built temporary roads or mud ramps, dragging stones upward inch by inch. Others have suggested that they may have used levers and a rhythmic rocking motion, balancing the weight across logs to inch the stones forward. But these ideas struggle to explain how such massive blocks could be maneuvered along cliffs barely wide enough for a man to walk, or how they could be lifted into place with a precision that leaves no visible gaps. The perfection of Machu Picchu's architecture reveals a deep understanding of physics, vibration, and balance. The walls were designed to withstand earthquakes, a constant danger in this seismic region. Instead of resisting tremors, they move with them. Each block can shift slightly without collapsing, absorbing the shock and settling back into position once the ground stills. Modern engineers study this principle as a natural form of earthquake resistance, and yet here it was perfected 5 centuries ago without instruments or written plans. There are also the city's drainage and water systems, which display an almost miraculous foresight. Beneath the terraces runs a network of stone-lined channels that redirect rainwater and prevent erosion. Even today, when torrential rains sweep through the Andes, Machu Picchu stands firm, its terraces never flooding its pathways, never washing away. The builders understood the mountain's veins, its flow of water, its breath of air, and designed the city to live with it, not against it. And perhaps that is where the real mystery lies. To the Incas, stone was not inert matter, but sacred essence. The mountains, the Apus, were living gods. To shape stone was not to dominate nature, but to commune with it. Could this reverence, this spiritual union with the land, have allowed them to see patterns and harmonies that modern builders overlook? Still, certain details stretch even the most spiritual explanations. In 1976, satellite imagery revealed something uncanny. When the shape of Machu Picchu is viewed from above and rotated at a certain angle, it resembles the profile of a human face gazing toward the heavens, a face formed naturally by the surrounding ridges and terraces. Some believe this was a coincidence, others a sign that the builders were following sacred geometries embedded in the earth itself. How could such intentional design have been achieved without tools of measurement, without blueprints or written schematics? Did they possess a form of knowledge now, lost a way of perceiving energy, vibration, or magnetism beyond our current science? There are whispers among the locals of an older civilization, one that predates the Incas, one that may have passed down fragments of this ancient knowledge. Some point to similar construction at Sacsayhuaman, near Cusco stones, just as immense fit, just as precisely. Were these built by the same hands, guided by the same invisible rule? As you walk along the sun-warmed walls, you begin to notice the silence, not just the absence of sound, but the presence of stillness. Each stone feels intentional, as if placed to communicate something wordless. You feel as though the city is aware of you, as though it waits. Centuries have passed, empires have fallen, and yet these stones remain unyielding and unbroken. Their strength defies time, and their creation defies reason. Perhaps the Incas, or those who came before them, knew truths that humanity has since forgotten, truths that cannot be written or measured, only lived and remembered through stone. And as twilight gathers over the Andes, the city seems to shimmer again, its edges dissolving into cloud. The stones whisper nothing yet everything. Their silence endures a mystery beyond the reach of iron or fire, waiting for the night to fall once more. The astronomers of the Andes. Night has lifted, and the first rays of sunrise pour gently over the peaks of Machu Picchu. A faint golden glow creeps across the terraces, illuminating walls that have stood untouched for centuries. The city seems to awaken in harmony with the heavens. Birds cry softly in the valley below, and you begin to understand that Machu Picchu was not just a fortress of stone, it was a place built to speak with the sky. The Incas, like many ancient civilizations, were deeply devoted to the movement of celestial bodies. To them, the sun was Inti, the divine source of warmth and life. The moon Mamakilla, the guardian of time, and the stars were the eyes of the gods watching over the earth. But nowhere in their empire did they honor the heavens more precisely than here, in this sanctuary, suspended between mountain and cloud. As you walk along the ridge, your footsteps echo through the Temple of the Sun, one of the most sacred structures in Machu Picchu. The walls curve gracefully, built from stones so precisely joined that centuries of earthquakes have not loosened a single seam. At the center lies a carved stone altar, its surface slightly slanted, its corners perfectly aligned with the cardinal points. When the solstice sun rises each June, its first beam of light pierces through a window in this temple, falling directly upon that altar. The Incas called this sacred moment Inti Raymi, the festival of the sun. It marked the time when the world was renewed, when light began its return to the high Andes. Even now, every solstice morning, the same beam enters that same window, as though the city still keeps its ancient appointment with the heavens. And then there is the Intihuatana stone, one of Machu Picchu's greatest enigmas. Its name means the hitching post of the sun. Rising from a terrace near the city's highest point, the stone appears simple, an angular block carved directly from the mountain. Yet its purpose transcends simplicity. The stone's four corners align precisely with the cardinal directions, and during equinoxes, the shadow it casts disappears completely, as though the sun were tied to it by invisible cords. Scholars have long debated the function of the Intihuatana. Some believe it was a solar calendar allowing priests to track planting seasons and festivals. Others see it as an astronomical instrument used to measure solstices and equinoxes with mathematical precision. And then there are those who sense something deeper, a spiritual bridge between the earth and the cosmos, a place where energy flows upward and downward in balance. Standing before it, you feel an uncanny stillness. The wind seems to hush. The shape of the stone mirrors the peaks beyond it, each edge rising toward a specific mountain, as if drawing strength from their summits. Ancient priests would have placed their hands upon this surface, feeling warmth from the sun, reading its movements like words written in light. How could a people without metal tools or written language design such accurate astronomical alignments? The entire city itself seems to mirror the celestial world. When mapped from above, its layout corresponds to the constellations known to the Incas, the llama, the serpent, the condor patterns traced by dark spaces in the Milky Way, rather than by stars themselves. To the Andean mind, darkness held meaning. The void between stars was where creation stirred. The Incas built their world around this idea of cosmic order, Hanan Pacha, the upper world of gods, Kai Pacha, the living world, and Uku Pacha, the inner world of spirits. Machu Picchu, poised between earth and sky, seems to embody all three. The city breathes like the cosmos itself, its terraces rising toward light, its stairways descending toward shadow. But as you follow the path upward to the sacred stone, questions continue to gather. Could the builders have known more than we imagine? The precision of these alignments suggests not mere observation, but advanced calculation, a geometry of both earth and sky. The angle of the temple walls, the orientation of the terraces, even the sight lines between mountain peaks appear intentional, forming a network of cosmic symmetry. Some researchers have suggested that Machu Picchu functioned as a celestial observatory, part of a larger grid of sacred sites across the Andes, each placed according to the movement of stars. The Inca capital Cusco lay at the center of this web, connected by invisible lines called sequoias, radiating like spokes of a wheel to temples, springs, and mountaintops. Could Machu Picchu have been one of those nodes, a high-altitude mirror of the heavens? Others whisper of something even older than the Incas themselves. The same precise solar alignments appear at pre-Inca ruins in Peru and Bolivia, and even in megalithic sites across the oceans. Were these coincidences or echoes of a forgotten system of celestial knowledge shared by cultures long before written history began? You stand at the Intihuatana and close your eyes. The stone beneath your hand feels warm, though the morning air is cool. For a moment you feel connected, not just to the city, but to the sky itself, as though the sunlight travels through you, as it once traveled through the priests who waited here centuries ago. When the sun finally rises to its zenith, Machu Picchu glows as if aflame. Every wall, stair, and terrace seems to shimmer with gold, and you begin to see what the ancient builders may have seen, not a collection of stones, but a living calendar, not a ruin, but a dialogue between the earth and the cosmos. No telescope could make the sky feel closer than it does here. And yet the exact purpose of these alignments, the reason for such devotion to light and shadow, remains hidden. No inscription tells us their meaning. No voice from the past explains what the Incas saw when they built a city that rises and falls in rhythm with the sun. Perhaps Machu Picchu was never merely an observatory, but an instrument of faith, a way for the people to remain in harmony with the universe. And as the wind moves softly through the ruins, the city seems to hum quietly, with the same rhythm it has known for centuries. In this sanctuary above the clouds, the stars and the stones are bound together, and in that bond, a mystery lingers, one that no compass or telescope has yet fully unraveled. The map of the sky. The sun has climbed high above the Andes, and the mountain air glows with a clarity that seems to make every stone shimmer. You walk slowly along a narrow terrace, gazing out over the deep valleys where the Urubamba River twists like a silver thread far below. Here, among the terraces of Machu Picchu, time feels suspended between earth and heaven. It is said that the Incas believed this place was built not merely to honor the gods of the sky, but to reflect them. From above, when seen through the eyes of modern drones or old aerial photographs, the layout of Machu Picchu reveals something astonishing. The entire city appears to echo patterns found in the night sky. Some researchers claim that its streets and temples mirror the constellation of the Southern Cross. Others see the outline of the Milky Way stretching across its length. Certain buildings seem to correspond with stars that rise over the peaks each solstice. To the people of the Andes, this was no coincidence. It was cosmic architecture, a way to bind heaven and earth into one sacred design. The Incas were not the first to imagine such harmony. Across the world, from Egypt to Mesopotamia to the jungles of Central America, ancient builders constructed temples and pyramids aligned precisely with celestial patterns. Yet here on this mountaintop wrapped in cloud, the alignment feels intimate, almost personal, as though the stones themselves were carved according to the rhythm of the heavens. You stand in the heart of the city, where narrow alleys rise and twist among sunlit courtyards. The placement of every structure seems intentional. The Temple of the Three Windows faces the dawn, each opening, framing the first light of morning as it spills across the sacred plaza. The walls of the royal tomb lie beneath the Temple of the Sun, as if linking life and death in one continuous cycle of light. Even the staircases appear to follow invisible lines drawn between peaks and constellations. Scholars have discovered that many of these alignments match what the Incas called celestial rivers, dark shapes within the Milky Way that they interpreted as living creatures. Where Western astronomers saw constellations traced by bright stars, the Incas saw figures of darkness, the llama, the fox, the serpent, the toad. These were not symbols of absence, but of life within shadow, woven into the great river of the night. To the Inca priests, the sky was a living mirror of the earth. The Urubamba River below was seen as the reflection of the Milky Way above, one flowing through heaven, the other through the Andes. And Machu Picchu, resting between the two, was the meeting place of both worlds, Pacha, the middle realm, where humans and gods could touch. Standing there, it becomes clear that Machu Picchu was more than a settlement. It was a map, not a map of roads or kingdoms, but of the cosmos itself. Each wall, each terrace, each stair was placed to echo the stars' eternal journey. When night fell and the sky opened, the people who lived here could look upward and see their own city reflected among the constellations. But the mystery deepens with the mountain shapes surrounding it. Huayna Picchu, the towering peak that guards the city, and Machu Picchu itself form a pair twin mountains aligned to the cardinal directions. When viewed from certain angles, the ridges and terraces shape the image of a sleeping face, as though the earth were gazing back at the heavens. This resemblance is so uncanny that some explorers have wondered whether it was intentional, an ancient landscape carving meant to symbolize the spirit of the mountain itself. Could the builders of Machu Picchu have designed the entire site as a three-dimensional model of the celestial world? The question lingers. The precise geometry, the alignments with solstice sunrises, and the connection between river and sky all seem too perfect to dismiss as coincidence. Yet skeptics argue that humans are wired to find patterns even where none exist. They insist that the resemblance between city and constellation is the product of imagination, not intention. But others counter that ancient cultures everywhere sought to mirror the heavens on earth. Why should the Incas be any different? Some archaeologists point to ancient records from Cusco describing sacred seke lines radiating outward from the Temple of the Sun, an invisible network of routes connecting hundreds of shrines and observatories across the empire. When plotted on a map, these lines form a vast celestial diagram mirroring the pattern of the stars. Machu Picchu may have been one of those sacred points, a mountain observatory marking the path of the sun across both land and sky. And then there are the myths whispers passed down through centuries. They speak of the builders before the Incas, a people said to have known the secrets of the stars. Some legends claim they came from across the sea, others from deep within the mountains. Their knowledge, it is said, allowed them to align stone and sky with a precision lost to later ages. Could Machu Picchu be their legacy, preserved and expanded by the Incas who followed? As dusk approaches, the sky turns a deep indigo. The stars begin to bloom one by one, and the valley below fades into shadow. You find yourself standing before the Intihuatana, again that carved stone, whose angles point silently toward the sun's eternal path. Yet now, under starlight, it seems to serve another purpose, a bridge to the cosmos, its form echoing peaks and constellations all at once. The stars reflect faintly in your eyes, and for a fleeting moment you sense what the ancient priests must have felt, the same pulse between heaven and earth, between light and darkness, between what can be seen and what cannot. Was Machu Picchu built to imitate the stars, or were the stars themselves guiding hands that shaped the city? The question drifts like mist through the night, unanswered, eternal. And as you stand amid the whispering terraces, you realize that in this city, built on the edge of the sky, humanity's longing to understand the cosmos is carved forever in stone. Echoes of the pyramids. The morning mist lingers again, curling through the terraces like breath from the mountains themselves. You walk quietly through the stillness, your footsteps echoing faintly against the ancient stones. All around you walls rise with impossible precision, each block fitted so tightly to its neighbor that centuries of rain and earthquakes have failed to move them, even by a hair's width. The silence feels alive, filled with questions that have outlasted empires. Standing here, it's hard not to think of other places, other monuments built in ages past, far across the seas. The pyramids of Egypt, the temples of Baalbek, the stones of Easter Island, the fortress of Sacsayhuaman near Cusco, all share a strange resemblance to Machu Picchu. Separated by oceans and continents, they seem to speak the same architectural language, immense stones cut and shaped with unknown precision, stacked without mortar, and aligned with stars. How could civilizations so far apart in space and time create structures so eerily alike? Coincidence, perhaps? Or maybe something deeper, some universal knowledge that humanity once possessed and then forgot. You look closer at the walls beside you. The blocks are not simple rectangles, but irregular shapes that interlock perfectly. Each one fits the next, like pieces of a cosmic puzzle. In Egypt's Great Pyramid, similar precision exists, gaps smaller than a fingernail angles, aligned with true north vast stones weighing dozens of tons, lifted into place with unknown tools. The resemblance is uncanny, and you cannot help but wonder if there is a shared thread, a pattern stretching across the millennia. Some scholars call it parallel innovation, the idea that people everywhere, when facing the same challenges, may have reached the same solutions. The need for stability, endurance, and harmony could have guided ancient builders in similar ways. But others, more speculative and daring, suggest that there was a transfer of knowledge, that civilizations we believe to be isolated were not as separate as we imagine. Ancient mariners perhaps could have crossed oceans long before Columbus or Magellan. There are traces, faint but persistent, that suggest the possibility depictions of maize in Egyptian art, similarities in mythic symbols, and the inexplicable accuracy of ancient maps showing coastlines known only to modern explorers. Could the builders of Machu Picchu have inherited techniques passed down from travelers who once circled the world? The Incas themselves spoke of teachers who came before them, mysterious figures called the Viracochas, tall beings with fair skin and luminous eyes who appeared after a great flood to bring wisdom, agriculture, and stonework to the Andes. The legends say they built great cities, taught the people, and then vanished across the sea, promising to return. The story echoes myths from faraway lands, the gods who walked among men in Sumer, Egypt, and even the Mediterranean. Of course, historians approach such tales with caution, calling them symbols or sacred allegories. Yet the resemblance between Machu Picchu's masonry and that of other ancient sites cannot easily be dismissed. The same principles, seismic resistance, astronomical orientation, and sacred geometry, appear again and again as though drawn from a shared blueprint of the human soul. At the heart of Machu Picchu stands its temple complex, where the finest stonework is found. The joints between stones curve inward and outward like waves concave, meeting convex, creating a perfect bond. This technique allows the walls to breathe during earthquakes, flexing and settling back without collapse. The same principle can be found in the lower courses of Egypt's oldest pyramids, where each block rests within the next. And then there are the foundations deeply anchored, built not only for strength, but for eternity. Modern engineers marvel at how water drains from the terraces without erosion, how pressure is distributed evenly along the slopes, how the entire city seems to have been designed as one massive living structure. When you step back and view it from a distance, it's almost as though Machu Picchu itself is a pyramid, an inverted one, its terraces rising upward toward the sun. Could it be that these builders were guided by an ancient concept of sacred geometry, the belief that harmony in structure reflects harmony in the cosmos? Across cultures, triangles, circles, and spirals symbolize creation and divine proportion. The Great Pyramid embodies the golden ratio. So too do the terraces of Machu Picchu, their slopes and angles echoing the same invisible mathematics. But there is another layer of mystery here. The location of Machu Picchu lies on a latitude roughly aligned with the Egyptian pyramids, a narrow band that encircles the globe dotted with sacred sites from every age. Some researchers have called it the Earth's energy line, a path where ancient builders may have sensed subtle harmonics, magnetic currents, or cosmic balance. While mainstream science finds no evidence for such forces, the alignment continues to provoke wonder. You stand on one of the terraces and gaze outward. The landscape ripples with green hills and jagged peaks, their silhouettes softened by drifting cloud. The thought arises unbidden. What if these similarities, these echoes of the pyramids, are not accidents at all? What if they are the fingerprints of a civilization older than history itself, whose knowledge was scattered like seeds across the world after some forgotten cataclysm. The idea is tempting, poetic, and haunting. Yet, as with all mysteries, evidence remains elusive. No ancient texts connect the builders of Peru to those of Egypt or Mesopotamia. No shipwrecks, no inscriptions, no shared language survives. What remains are the stones themselves, silent, enduring, and alike in their perfection. Even so, it's hard not to feel a kinship among them. As the light changes, you imagine the same sun that rose over the Nile centuries ago, now warming the terraces of the Andes. The same constellations that guided Egyptian priests shine here over these peaks. Time and distance dissolve. Humanity's great builders, wherever they lived, were all staring at the same sky, asking the same questions, seeking the same connection between heaven and earth. And as night descends again over Machu Picchu, the moon rises high, its silver light pouring over the stones. The city glows faintly ancient and eternal. You realize that every block here, every angle and curve might be more than architecture. It might be a memory of an idea that humanity once knew, that to build upon the earth is to mirror the stars above. The echoes of the pyramids still whisper through these stones. And though we may never know whether those whispers cross oceans or simply time itself, their message remains the same, a call to remember that we were once builders of both stone and sky. The face in the mountain. As dawn returns, mist rolls over the mountain ridges like waves upon a sleeping sea. The air is thin, sharp, and luminous. From where you stand on a high terrace of Machu Picchu, the world below is veiled in clouds, and the only sounds are the rustle of wind and the quiet cry of distant birds. You gaze at the horizon where the mountain peaks pierce the sky, and then slowly your eyes begin to discern something unexpected in their shape. It is subtle at first, a curve of stone here, a rise there, but when the mist clears it becomes unmistakable, the profile of a human face, serene and ageless, lying across the ridges. The slopes of the mountain form the outline of a brow, a nose, a closed eye gazing toward the heavens. The image seems to breathe with the morning light. The longer you stare, the harder it becomes to dismiss it as chance. Some say it is the sleeping guardian of Machu Picchu, carved not by human hands, but by the earth itself. Others believe the Incas recognized this natural formation and chose to build their city here for that very reason, a sacred site watched over by the mountain spirit. And a few suggest that the resemblance may not be accidental at all. The mystery deepens when viewed from above. Photographs taken by explorers and satellites show the mountain's face in astonishing clarity. Its gaze appears to point skyward, as though in communion with the stars. And curiously, it aligns in direction with the face on Mars, the enigmatic formation photographed by NASA's Viking 1 spacecraft in 1976, which some claim bears uncanny resemblance to a human visage. The so-called face on Mars looks directly across the Earth toward the Andes, its line of sight by strange coincidence intersecting with the coordinates of Machu Picchu itself. Of course, most scientists dismiss the connection as coincidence, a trick of light, shadow, and imagination. Yet the symmetry between mountain and face is undeniable. Ancient people across the world often saw divine meaning in landscapes that resembled living beings. To the Inca, the mountains, the Apus, were gods themselves, guardians who watched over valleys and rivers. It is entirely possible they believed the mountain's visage to be a sign that this was where the earth and sky could speak to each other. If this was true, then Machu Picchu was not merely built on sacred ground, It was carved into the sacred form of a god. Legends preserved by local Quechua elders tell of a spirit named Apu Machu Picchu, a mountain deity who sleeps within the stone. It is said he dreams beneath the peaks, guarding the hidden wisdom of the ancient builders. Those who come here with a pure heart, the stories claim, can feel his presence, a pulse within the rocks, a hum that rises with the wind. When you stand in silence long enough, the mountain seems to breathe. But could such a formation really have been intentional? Could ancient builders have chosen or even shaped the mountain to form a colossal visage seen only from above, something that no one could have fully appreciated without flight or aerial vision? The idea seems impossible, and yet the precision of Machu Picchu's design suggests that its architects thought on a scale that transcended simple practicality. Some theorists argue that the Incas, or perhaps an earlier civilization, possessed a profound understanding of perspective and proportion, that they aligned architecture with the natural contours of the mountains to create patterns visible only from certain vantage points. The very terraces of Machu Picchu, when seen from a distance, flow along the mountain's cheek, following the lines of that sleeping face as though tracing its features. Others go further still. They believe these patterns represent geoglyphic art, similar to the Nazca lines in southern Peru, immense figures etched into the earth to be seen only from the sky. Could the face of Machu Picchu be part of a greater network of such sacred symbols spanning the Andes and communicating messages between gods and men? Skeptics, however, remind us that the human mind is wired to find meaning in randomness. It is a phenomenon known as pareidolia, the tendency to perceive faces and familiar forms in clouds, rocks, and shadows. They argue that the face is nothing more than a coincidence of ridges and valleys shaped by erosion. The Incas, they say, simply built their city where the terrain offered defense and water, not divine symmetry. Yet something about this explanation feels too small, too clinical, for what your eyes and heart perceive. When you stand upon these stones and look across the mountains, you sense purpose in every curve and fold of the land. The mountains do not feel random. They feel alive, as though sculpted by intention rather than chance. In ancient Inca cosmology, the world was a living body, each mountain a being, each valley a vein. The people who built Machu Picchu may not have needed to shape the mountain, they only needed to recognize its shape. By placing their sanctuary here, they completed what nature had begun, bridging the sacred forms of heaven and earth. And perhaps this was the true secret of their genius. They did not separate art from nature or man from God. To them, every rock had a spirit, every mountain a face. In that belief, they saw patterns modern minds have forgotten how to see. As twilight falls, the last light slips across the ridge, tracing once more the faint outline of the sleeping face. Its lips seem to rest in a quiet smile, as though it knows something we do not. The city glows beneath it, terraces, silvered by moonlight walls, whispering softly with the passing wind. You feel as though the mountain is watching not in menace, but in remembrance, watching over the lost builders, over centuries of silence, over you. And in that gaze you glimpse something timeless, the bond between humankind and the earth that birthed it, the ancient recognition that we are not apart from the mountains, but of them. Whether shaped by hands or by nature, the face in the mountain remains half stone, half spirit, a mystery that sleeps and dreams beneath the clouds, forever guarding the city in the sky. Vilcabamba, or something older. The wind moves gently through the terraces as you climb toward the sacred plaza. Below, the green slopes of the Andes descend into valleys veiled with cloud, and above the peaks rise like altars to the gods. The stones beneath your feet are smooth and ancient. They whisper of hands that placed them long before your time, hands that perhaps belonged not to the Incas at all. For more than a century, archaeologists have debated a simple but haunting question: was Machu Picchu truly an Inca city or something far older? When Hiram Bingham first arrived here in 1911, guided by the local farmer Melchor Arteaga, he believed he had found Vilcabamba, the fabled last refuge of the Inca emperors. According to colonial chronicles, Vilcabamba was the hidden fortress where the final Inca rulers fled after the Spanish conquest, a secret stronghold buried deep in the jungle from which they resisted the invaders for decades. The discovery seemed to match the legends: a lost city high in the clouds, untouched and unknown to the outside world. But as researchers began to study the ruins, the story began to unravel. The artifacts found at Machu Picchu were not weapons of war, but ceremonial vessels, fine pottery, and religious carvings. There were no traces of Spanish attack, no burned walls, or hastily built fortifications. The site was serene, orderly, and sacred, a sanctuary, not a citadel. Later expeditions uncovered the ruins of another site, Espiritu Pampa, far deeper in the jungle, which proved to match the Spanish descriptions of Vilcabamba more closely. Gradually, scholars accepted that Machu Picchu was not the last city of the Incas at all, but something else entirely, something whose purpose remained shrouded in silence. Yet this conclusion opened another mystery. If not Vilcabamba, then what some scholars suggest that Machu Picchu was a royal estate built by Emperor Pachacuti in the mid-15th century as a retreat for spiritual reflection. Its architecture, they argue, reflects the harmony of Inca imperial design terraces for farming temples, for worship, and residential quarters for nobility. Others see it as a pilgrimage center, a sacred station on the path to the holy mountain of Salcante, where priests studied the stars and communed with the sun. But there are others, historians, engineers, and dreamers alike, who believe the Incas did not build Machu Picchu at all. They point to subtle differences in style and technique. The fitted stonework at Machu Picchu bears resemblance to the even older megalithic walls of Ollantaytambo and Sacsayhuaman, whose origins are themselves uncertain. The joints at Machu Picchu are flawless, cut to curves and angles beyond what the Incas typically employed in their later, more functional architecture. Some argue that the Incas merely inherited these stones from an earlier civilization, one whose name and language have vanished. The Inca themselves, when asked by early chroniclers about certain massive ruins, often said they were built by the Pirwas or the Huari, or by gods themselves, beings who came before them. In their stories, the world was born and reborn many times. Each age ended in destruction, and a new one began from the remnants of the old. Machu Picchu, they might have said, was a relic of a forgotten dawn. Modern archaeology, cautious but curious, hints at the same possibility. Beneath the Inca masonry, researchers have found foundations of older stone, weathered and rough, suggesting layers of construction, separated by centuries or perhaps millennia. Geological studies reveal that some stones were shaped long before the Inca Empire rose their surfaces, worn by rains that predate recorded history. Who then were these earlier builders? Some speculate about the mysterious Tiahuanaco culture centered near Lake Titicaca, 1,000 kilometers away, whose massive stone temples also defy explanation. Others imagine an Andean civilization, older still one that may have possessed lost knowledge of geometry, astronomy, and engineering, unmatched even by later empires. The similarities are striking: polygonal blocks, precision fitting, astronomical alignment, and sacred mountain placement. The same patterns repeat from Tiahuanaco to Cusco to Machu Picchu, as if the same invisible hand guided each. And so a quiet suspicion persists that Machu Picchu was not the beginning of Inca achievement, but the echo of something much more ancient. Even local oral traditions seem to remember more than they reveal. Quechua legends speak of Viracocha, the great creator god who molded humanity from stone and taught the first people how to build. After a time he left, crossing the sea, promising to return when the world was ready. The Incas, inheritors of these myths, might have seen themselves not as inventors but as keepers of divine knowledge. Perhaps Machu Picchu was part of that inheritance, a sacred remnant of the first builders preserved through generations, its meaning fading, but its power enduring. You wander through the narrow corridors where sunlight falls like liquid gold across the walls. The air hums softly, filled with the scent of wet earth and the cry of swallows circling above. The stones seem to remember more than they show. No writing records the city's creation, no inscription names its architect. And yet everything about this place feels deliberate, as if its builders worked not for kings or gods, but for the earth itself. You pause and look toward the horizon, where the twin peaks of Machu Picchu and Huayna Picchu cradle the city like two hands offering it to the sky. The geometry, the placement, the perfection, it all seems too precise to be accident, too ancient to be new. Was this truly the work of the Incas at the height of their empire, or were they simply the final heirs of a chain of forgotten worlds, each one building upon the ruins of the last, each one fading into legend? The mist returns as evening falls, curling between the terraces, softening the sharp lines of the stones. The city grows quiet again, as though unwilling to answer the question. Perhaps Machu Picchu was Vilcabamba, perhaps it was older. Perhaps it has always been here, waiting for memory to catch up with it. In this silence between centuries, the stones keep their secret. They do not tell us who built them. They only remind us that someone once did, and that their touch still lingers, patient and eternal, beneath the skin of the mountain. The city without words. Evening settles softly over Machu Picchu, and the last light fades to amber along the edges of the terraces. You walk slowly through the stillness, and the only sound is the low hum of the wind sliding between the stones. The city glows faintly in twilight, ancient yet alive. For all its grandeur, one truth whispers through every courtyard and corridor: the people who built this place left no words behind. The Incas were among the greatest builders in human history, yet they were a civilization without writing, no books, no carved scripts, no scrolls or tablets. All that remains of their record-keeping are cords of twisted thread called quipu, knotted in complex patterns of color and length. These cords, woven from llama or alpaca fiber, were the Incas' language of memory. Through them, they counted harvests, tributes, and populations, but perhaps much more. Some researchers now believe quipu may have encoded stories, even philosophies, within their intricate designs, though their meanings have largely been lost to time. As you look around the vast city of terraces, temples, and dwellings, it's difficult to fathom how such an advanced society could thrive without the written word. And yet, in the Incas' world, knowledge lived in stone, in rhythm, and in the voice of the people. Their stories were carried not by ink, but by ritual passed through generations by priests, farmers, and astronomers who remembered the stars, the seasons, and the sacred geometry of the earth. Perhaps that is why Machu Picchu feels different from any other ruin. Its silence is not emptiness, it is language written in stone. Every wall is a sentence, every terrace is a phrase. The city itself is a story you can walk through, read only by those who know how to listen. Still, this lack of written record remains one of the most perplexing enigmas in history. How did a civilization that mastered architecture, astronomy, and engineering never develop writing? How could they organize an empire spanning thousands of miles without parchment or pen? Spanish chroniclers, upon conquering the Andes, were astonished. They found no libraries, no codices like those of the Maya, no clay tablets like in Mesopotamia. The empire's administrators could summon armies, collect taxes, and direct vast projects using only quipu and the memories of trained officials. It was a civilization built on living knowledge held within human minds. But this fragile system collapsed quickly when those minds were silenced. The arrival of the Spanish destroyed the oral lines of inheritance, and with them, the invisible network of understanding that bound the empire together. What was left were monuments like Machu Picchu, mute testaments to a language no one can read anymore. And perhaps that is why it haunts us. Without writing, we cannot hear the voices of its people. We do not know the names of the builders, the priests, the children who lived and died here. We do not know their songs, their prayers, their laughter. The stones remember everything, but they speak in a tongue that has long since gone quiet. As night deepens, you sit beside the temple of the sun. The stars emerge one by one above the dark silhouette of Huayna Picchu. You imagine the astronomer priests of the empire watching these same constellations, measuring their rise and fall across the seasons. They did not write their calculations, they lived them. Every movement of a shadow, every change in the river's flow was part of their calendar. It is possible that for the Incas, words would have been too fragile for the truth they sought to express. Theirs was a philosophy rooted not in description, but in participation, the belief that to know the world, one must become part of it. In that sense, Machu Picchu was not merely a monument, but a living text, a cosmic book written not in ink, but in mountain and light. And yet the absence of written history leaves modern scholars adrift. Without language to anchor interpretation, everything becomes conjecture. Was this city a royal retreat, a temple to the sun, a school for astronomer priests, or a sacred observatory aligned to the heavens? Every theory is built upon silence. Sometimes silence is the greatest mystery of all. Still clues remain, fragments of communication that linger in form and proportion. The number of terraces, the arrangement of doorways, even the staircases seem to hold meaning. Some researchers believe these design choices correspond to symbolic numbers, sacred in Inca cosmology: 3 for the three worlds, heaven, earth, and underworld; 4 for the cardinal directions; 12 for the months of the solar year. If so, Machu Picchu may have been an embodied scripture, a physical calendar, a prayer in stone. You glance up at the stars again. They shimmer brightly above the ridge, the same constellations the builders once watched. In their absence of words, the Incas may have preserved something we have forgotten, that understanding can exist without writing, that memory can be carved not only in libraries, but in the living world. In the stillness, it becomes clear why Machu Picchu endures. The written word can burn, fade, or be forgotten, but stone endures through time, holding what language cannot. And so this city, the city without words, continues to speak through light, through shadow, through silence. When you close your eyes, you can almost hear it, the whisper of a civilization that spoke through wind and rock, the faint rhythm of knowledge that once flowed through every terrace and temple. It says nothing directly, but it tells everything. The Inca may have left no words, but they left something far greater, a language that no one can erase, because it is written in the bones of the earth. Abandonment and silence. Mist settles thickly over Machu Picchu, cloaking its terraces in a silver veil. The world here feels outside of time, suspended between past and present, between the living and the forgotten. You walk through the quiet plazas where grass grows between stones that once echoed with footsteps. There is no smoke rising from the hearths, no voices of children, no rhythm of drums. The city is empty, yet it does not feel dead. It feels paused, as if its people left only yesterday, certain they would one day return. The question that haunts every visitor to this sacred place is simple but endless. Why did they leave? There is no evidence of conquest, no burnt walls, no shattered idols, no signs of struggle. The Spanish never found Machu Picchu, and so they never destroyed it. Unlike so many other Incan cities, its fall did not come with fire or blood. Instead, it was as though it had quietly drifted from the world, fading into cloud and memory. Archaeologists have proposed many reasons for its abandonment. Some believe the city's population succumbed to disease brought by the Spanish, spreading through the empire even before the invaders reached the mountains. Others suggest famine or drought, or perhaps a loss of political power after the death of Pachacuti, the emperor often credited with its creation. But none of these theories feel complete. The city's structures remain unscathed, its terraces still fertile, its water channels still functioning. Nothing here shows desperation or decay. It feels more like a withdrawal, a deliberate retreat, a decision made with reverence rather than fear. Some scholars have begun to wonder if Machu Picchu's abandonment was not a collapse, but a ritual closure. In many ancient traditions, sacred sites were never finished. They were meant to serve their purpose and then be returned to the earth. Perhaps the priests of Machu Picchu sealed their temples and walked away as part of a final ceremony, leaving the sanctuary to the gods it was built to honor. In the Andean worldview, all things were cyclical. The empires rise and fall, the movement of stars, the breath of the mountains, all followed rhythms of creation and rest. If the builders believed the time of Machu Picchu had ended, they might have chosen to let it sleep, unviolated within the clouds. But there are other whispers, rumors that suggest a deeper story. Some believe that when the Spanish conquered Cusco in the 1530s, the priests and nobles of the empire withdrew into the mountains, taking their sacred knowledge and treasures with them. They sought refuge in hidden sanctuaries where they could preserve their rituals away from foreign eyes. Could Machu Picchu have been one of these sanctuaries, a place where the last priests performed their rites before vanishing into legend? Local tales tell of a golden city concealed beyond the peaks, a refuge called Paititi, said to hold the lost wisdom and treasures of the Incas. Many explorers have vanished searching for it in the jungles east of Cusco. Some claim that Machu Picchu was the gateway to that hidden kingdom, a threshold between the known and the unseen. The truth may never be known. What we do know is that, after the 16th century, the jungle slowly claimed the city. Trees took root in courtyards, vines crept over walls, and moss soften the sharp lines of stone. For nearly 4 centuries, Machu Picchu vanished from maps and from memory. Only a few local farmers knew of the ruins hidden in the clouds. To the outside world it ceased to exist. It is strange to think that a city of such perfection could disappear so quietly. But perhaps that was always its destiny, to endure not through fame but through silence. When you stand here now, the silence feels immense but not empty. It is alive, charged with something you cannot name. You can almost sense the presence of those who once lived here, the hum of their voices in the wind, the rustle of their footsteps across the terraces. The air feels sacred, as if it still remembers their prayers. There are places in Machu Picchu where the stones seem to hum faintly when touched, resonating with a vibration so low it feels more in the bones than in the ears. Some visitors call it an illusion, but others believe the city itself carries an energy, a kind of memory field storing the spiritual essence of those who built it. If so, then perhaps the Incas never truly abandoned Machu Picchu. Perhaps they simply merged with it, becoming part of its breath, its silence, its eternal rhythm. As the mist drifts across the stones, the city feels less like a ruin and more like a sleeper, a presence resting beneath the weight of time. The Incas may be gone, but the city endures, waiting patiently for something or someone to remember what it once meant. You watch the clouds gather again around Huayna Picchu, swirling like white smoke from an invisible fire. The sound of the wind seems almost like a whisper, the last voice of the builders carried through the centuries. We are still here. Machu Picchu remains one of the few sacred places untouched by conquest, unsilenced by war. Its silence is not absence, it is preservation. The stones speak not through words, but through endurance. They tell a story of a people who understood that nothing lasts forever, yet everything returns. As night falls and the stars reappear over the dark peaks, you realize the mystery of its abandonment is perhaps not a mystery at all. The city was not lost, it was simply resting, as all sacred things must. It sleeps beneath the clouds, wrapped in time and memory, waiting for those who will listen not to its silence, but to the life still hidden within it. A civilization beyond the known. The night has deepened over the Andes. Above Machu Picchu, the sky opens like an ancient book, filled with stars that shimmer against the blackness of infinity. You stand at the edge of a terrace, gazing upward, and it feels as if the mountains themselves are leaning in to listen. There is something eternal here, something that whispers of a time before memory. For centuries, Machu Picchu has been called the jewel of the Inca Empire, yet as scholars and seekers continue to probe its mysteries, a question persists. Could it belong to a civilization older than the Incas, perhaps older than any civilization we know? The thought seems audacious, yet it lingers. The perfection of the stones, the alignment of the temples, the sheer ingenuity of the terraces all feel as though they were born from knowledge too advanced, too complete to have appeared suddenly in the 15th century. And across the world, echoes of this same enigma appear in places far removed from these peaks. At Sacsayhuaman, not far from Cusco, colossal stones fit together with the same impossible precision found here. In Egypt, pyramids built millennia earlier share the same geometric principles, the same astronomical alignments. In Turkey, at Göbekli Tepe, megalithic pillars carved 12,000 years ago stand in deliberate patterns aligned to stars that no longer rise in the same places. How could cultures separated by oceans and eons create monuments that speak the same language of stone and sky? Some historians explain it through human ingenuity, parallel invention, the repetition of universal patterns. Yet others quietly suggest another possibility, that these scattered sites might be fragments of an ancient global memory left behind by a civilization that predates all known history. In this vision, humanity once possessed a deeper understanding of the earth of energy of geometry, of the living resonance between matter and spirit. Knowledge that allowed our ancestors to move and shape stone not by brute strength, but by harmony, using sound vibration or magnetism in ways that modern science has only begun to imagine. Legends from every corner of the world seem to hint at such a time. In the Andes, people still tell stories of the Viracochas, radiant beings who came from the sea to teach the arts of agriculture and architecture, then vanished. In Egypt, the god Thoth was said to have brought geometry and writing to mankind after a great flood. In Mesopotamia, the Anunnaki descended from the heavens to shape the first cities. In Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, gave humans knowledge of stars and calendars before disappearing into the east. Different names, different lands, but the same archetype teachers from beyond time-bearing wisdom that would later become the foundation of human civilization. Could Machu Picchu have been one of their final sanctuaries, an outpost of that forgotten age, where the last fragments of their science were preserved in stone? Skeptics dismiss such ideas as myth-making, a search for wonder where none is needed. They argue that the Incas themselves were genius enough that they did not need help from gods or lost civilizations, and perhaps they are right. But as you stand before these perfect walls, it is difficult not to feel that something profound lingers here, something that transcends what we call history. Even modern instruments detect anomalies within Machu Picchu's boundaries. Subtle magnetic fields, slight gravitational variations, unusual acoustic properties. Sound behaves strangely. Here voices carry farther than they should. Echoes vanish mid-sentence. Some researchers have speculated that the stones were arranged not only for structural stability, but for resonance, creating spaces that amplify the frequencies of human speech or song. The Incas, who worshipped sound as sacred, may have understood this intimately. But if they inherited the site, then who first discovered such harmonies between architecture and energy? Elsewhere in Peru, at Ollantaytambo, stones were transported from quarries across rivers and valleys that would challenge even modern cranes. Some weigh over 70 tons. The methods of transport remain unknown. Legends claim the stones were made to float, lifted by chants and flutes that sang to the rock until it grew light. To modern ears, it sounds like myth. But what if the myth is memory, an echo of technology lost beneath centuries of forgetting? As you walk the silent paths of Machu Picchu, the idea becomes less far-fetched. This place does not feel primitive. It feels deliberate, mathematically, elegant, spiritually resonant, cosmically aware. It feels like a blueprint of something greater, a bridge between human consciousness and the living earth. Perhaps the builders of Machu Picchu were not an isolated people, but inheritors of a knowledge that once spanned the world, an understanding of how to weave matter and energy together into harmony. If so, then the Incas were the final keepers of a wisdom now almost extinguished. The night deepens. Stars fill the sky bright and cold. From this height, the Milky Way seems close enough to touch. It arcs directly over Machu Picchu, tracing the same curve as the Urubamba River far below. Heaven and earth mirror each other perfectly, as though the city were not merely built beneath the stars, but within them. You realize standing here that this is perhaps the truest mystery of all. Not who built Machu Picchu, or when, but why. What vision moved them to carve a city from mountain and mist? What dream inspired them to lift their world so close to the heavens that it still hums with cosmic alignment? No ancient record answers. The stones remain silent, and yet in their silence you sense a truth that words can't hold, that the story of humanity is far older, far deeper, and far more mysterious than we dare believe. Machu Picchu may not just be the relic of an empire. It may be the echo of an age before empires, before memory, when knowledge was not written in books, but sung through stone and starlight. As the wind rises across the terraces, you feel a strange peace. Perhaps the builders of this place did not vanish. Perhaps their knowledge is still here, sleeping beneath the stones, waiting for the moment when humankind is ready to remember. You look once more at the sky, and for an instant the stars above seem to pulse in rhythm with the earth below. The city breathes, and you breathe with it, a heartbeat shared across millennia. And in that breath, the boundary between what is known and what is lost dissolves, leaving only wonder. The modern revelation. The jungle is restless tonight. The sound of insects rises like 1,000 hidden instruments, their rhythm carried on the wind that sweeps through the canyons below. Clouds roll over the peaks, spilling silver light across the terraces. You stand near the edge of Machu Picchu, where stone meets air, and think of how long this place remained hidden, how many centuries it slept beneath vines and silence before the world remembered it again. For nearly 400 years, Machu Picchu existed as a whisper among local farmers and shepherds. The Spanish never found it, and the world forgot it. But in 1911, when the American explorer Hiram Bingham was led here by a Peruvian guide named Melchor Arteaga, the veil of centuries was lifted. Bingham had been searching for Vilcabamba, the last refuge of the Inca emperors, yet what he found was something no record had ever described. On that misty July morning, he climbed the slopes of Huayna Picchu and looked down upon terraces swallowed by forest. As the clouds parted, the outlines of temples and stairways emerged from the jungle like the bones of a sleeping giant. Vines clung to the stones, and trees had grown through windows, their roots gripping the walls like fingers. But beneath the overgrowth everything was astonishingly intact. He wrote of that moment later. Suddenly, I found myself in a maze of beautiful granite houses, all built of the finest quality stonework. The sight of the ruins left me spellbound. The world, too, would soon fall under that spell. Photographs of the lost city spread across newspapers and journals, and within a few short years, Machu Picchu became a symbol of mystery reborn. Scholars, travelers, and dreamers from every corner of the world came to stand where you now stand, to touch the stones, to feel the air, to wonder how something so magnificent could have been forgotten. Yet Bingham's discovery was not without controversy. Many of the artifacts he removed, ceramics tools, and skeletal remains, were taken to Yale University for study, and for decades Peru sought their return. Only in recent years have some of these treasures been repatriated, their homecoming seen as a spiritual restoration of balance between past and present. But Machu Picchu itself has never ceased to reveal new secrets. Each decade brings discoveries hidden beneath moss and soil, ceremonial fountains, hidden terraces, even entire clusters of buildings buried under layers of forest. Modern archaeologists use LiDAR technology, laser scanning from the air, to peer through the vegetation, uncovering geometric patterns invisible to the naked eye. What they have found suggests that the visible city is only a fraction of the whole. Deep in the surrounding mountains, LiDAR has revealed more structures, terraces, roads, and walls, connecting Machu Picchu to a vast network of sacred sites. The city, it seems, was part of something far larger, a ceremonial complex that stretched across the Andes like veins of light. Even today, new routes are mapped tracing paths that the Incas once used to walk between temples and stars. The discoveries have also deepened the mystery. Beneath certain areas of the city, researchers using ground-penetrating radar have detected cavities and tunnels, possibly containing tombs or hidden chambers. Permission to excavate these remains under debate, for the Peruvian government views Machu Picchu as a living heritage site, sacred and untouchable. Yet the mere possibility that hidden chambers lie beneath its stones keeps the imagination aflame. Technology has revealed another wonder too, the alignment between the city's layout and the energy lines of the Earth itself. Modern geomagnetic mapping shows that Machu Picchu sits on a convergence of geological fault lines, natural conduits of electromagnetic energy. Whether intentional or coincidental, the city's major temples and stones lie directly along these lines, amplifying the strange sense of vibration that visitors often describe. Some claim to feel it beneath their fingertips when they touch the sun gate or the Intihuatana stone, a low hum like the pulse of the earth. Scientists call it magnetism. The Andean people call it kamasca, the living energy that flows through all things. As the modern world rediscovers Machu Picchu, the contrast between technology and mystery has only grown sharper. Satellites, lasers, and sensors can map every terrace, every angle, every grain of stone, but they cannot capture the city's soul. No data explains why its beauty feels eternal, or why those who visit often leave changed, quieted, filled with a kind of reverence that words cannot express. Tourists now walk the same paths once tread by priests and astronomers, their cameras flashing where torches once flickered. And yet, amid the hum of voices and footsteps, there are moments when the old silence returns. Sometimes at dawn, when the mist swirls just right, the city seems to remember itself. The light strikes the stones as it did centuries ago, and for an instant, Machu Picchu is no longer a ruin, but a living place suspended between past and future. Even in the age of satellites, the site keeps its mysteries. The question of its true origin, purpose, and meaning remains open, endlessly inviting. Each generation of explorers believes it stands at the threshold of understanding, only to find that the city has more to say than they can hear. And perhaps that is the point. Machu Picchu is not a riddle meant to be solved, but an experience meant to awaken something ancient within us, a reminder that there was a time when human hands built not only for survival, but for wonder. You look across the terraces now, where electric light from distant villages glows faintly in the valleys. The world has changed beyond measure since the Incas raised these stones, yet here on this mountain, the air still feels ancient, untouched. Maybe the true revelation of Machu Picchu is not what we discover about it, but what it reveals about us, that even in an age of reason, we still hunger for mystery, for the unseen, for the sacred. And so the city continues to whisper across the centuries, not as an artifact of the past, but as a mirror reflecting the timeless desire in every human heart to reach upward, to build something that endures, to leave behind a trace of spirit carved in stone. The mist returns as you turn to leave. It curls over the terraces like memory, gentle and luminous, as if the mountain itself exhales. For a moment the city disappears again into cloud hidden, as it has always been waiting for those who will one day seek it anew. The unanswered stone. The sun has not yet risen, but the sky above Machu Picchu glows with that quiet gray light that comes just before dawn. You stand alone among the terraces. The air is cool and perfectly still, the mist curling around the mountains like smoke from a sacred fire. For a moment, everything seems motionless until you realize that even in silence the world here breathes. The mountain exhales through its valleys. The stones themselves seem to pulse slow and steady as if alive. You walk toward the Intihuatana, the carved pillar known as the hitching post of the sun. The stone rises from the bedrock of the mountain itself, cut with angles so deliberate that its shadow disappears completely during the equinox. It feels warm to the touch, even in the cold of morning. For centuries, pilgrims have come here to feel that warmth, to sense the faint hum beneath their palms, the vibration that some say connects the stone to the heartbeat of the earth. No one truly knows what the Intihuatana was for. Some say it measured the sun's journey across the sky, marking the sacred times of planting and harvest. Others believe it was a device of energy, an instrument that tuned the city to the frequencies of the cosmos. Still others think it was a bridge not between man and sun, but between worlds, between what is seen and what is hidden, between the living and the divine. Whatever its purpose, it stands as Machu Picchu's silent heart, the one stone that has never stopped asking questions. You look around and the city stretches before you like a dream. Terraces curve along the mountain's edge. Doorways frame the empty air stairways climb toward nowhere. Every stone seems placed with intention, every line balanced between geometry and grace. And yet, the more perfect it seems, the more mysterious it becomes. How did they lift these stones? How did they carve them with tools softer than the rock itself? How did they align their temples with solstices, constellations, and energy lines that modern instruments have only just rediscovered? The Incas left no diagrams, no records, no written instructions, only this harmony of form and spirit. You recall how the stones fit together, concave meeting, convex their seams invisible. You think of the mountains that form a human face when viewed from above, the terraces that trace constellations, the city aligned with the Milky Way. Each discovery deepens rather than dispels the mystery. Every explanation reveals a greater question. Perhaps the most haunting truth is that no one can say with certainty why this city was built or by whom or for what final purpose. All our theories, royal estate, sanctuary, observatory, are fragments of a story half erased by time. And yet, when you walk these terraces, you sense something deeper than history. It is not knowledge in the modern sense, not data or evidence, but presence. A wisdom that does not explain itself, but simply is. Maybe the mystery of Machu Picchu is not meant to be solved at all. Maybe it exists to remind us that the world is still full of wonder, that not everything must be known to be real. As the first light of dawn touches the stones, the city awakens in silence. The sun spills over the eastern peaks, turning the granite walls to gold. For a moment, the mist glows with color, amber, rose, and silver, then clears, revealing the city in all its perfection. It feels less like you are standing in ruins and more like you are standing in a vision. You realize that this place has never truly been lost. It was waiting, sleeping, yes, but never gone. It waited for us to look beyond ourselves to see what our ancestors saw when they shaped stone and sky into a single prayer. Across the world, civilizations rise and fall, their temples buried, their names forgotten. But the stones of Machu Picchu endure, carrying no inscription except their own silence. They do not speak of gods or kings. They speak of something older, of balance, of reverence, of a time when humanity built not for power, but for peace. Perhaps that is why the mystery still calls to us. It is not the mystery of the Incas or of some lost civilization. It is the mystery of ourselves. We look upon these stones and sense that once long ago humanity knew something sacred that it has since misplaced. You touch the Intihuatana one last time. The stone is smooth beneath your fingers, its edges soft from centuries of wind. You feel the faint vibration again, a hum that seems to rise from deep within the mountain. It is neither sound nor silence, but something in between. The sun crests fully, now flooding the terraces with light. The mist burns away, and the mountains shine. You close your eyes, and for a heartbeat it feels as if you are part of it, all stone and sky, earth and breath, the endless rhythm of time. When you open them again, the city stands as it always has, quiet, eternal waiting. The unanswered stone remains, its purpose unknown, its silence unbroken. Yet in that silence lies something more powerful than explanation, the enduring reminder that mystery itself is sacred, and that some questions are not meant to be solved but cherished. As the sun climbs higher, you turn and begin the slow descent from the sanctuary in the sky. Behind you, Machu Picchu glows in the morning light, watching timeless, patient, as if still dreaming the dream of those who built it long before the first word was written, and long after the last will fade.